everyone, it's me Matt, thanks for joining me. Now, I'm not a aviation guru, but that start of the video definitely put a couple of hairs on the back of my neck up. Today, we're talking about the IL-76, and before we get into today's video, let me know what your favourite workhorse for aviation is for heavy lifting, tactical lifting, or strategic lifting. Mine is the C5 Galaxy. I've been inside of one of those things. They are just absolutely incredible, and by the way, I have done a video on the American C5 Galaxy. You can go check it out, but we are looking at Russian aerospace forces in flight today, and the beautiful IL-76 Candid is a legend among military transport, a 4-engine Soviet-built Goliath that has hauled troops, tanks, and tons of cargo across continents for almost half a century. In this video, we're going to explore its Cold War origins, its crucial roles in conflicts, and how this heavy hauler remains one of the biggest backbones of militaries around the world. Designed in 1967 at the height of the Cold War to replace the older Antonov An-12 turboprop, the IL-76 was built to carry 40 tons of payload over 5,000 kilometers into remote, rugged airstrips, even under Siberia's harsh weather conditions. First flown in 1971 and introduced in 1974, this jet-powered transporter gave the Soviet Union a strategic airlift capability on par with some of the Western counterparts. Funnily enough, it even outclassed some in rough field performance. The IL-76 ended up heavier than the US C-141 Starlifter and slightly behind it in range, but a far better suited system for unpaved runways and austere bases. Her design origin lies in the directive in 1976 to build a jet transport that could deliver heavy machinery, supplies and troops to completely isolated areas with minimal infrastructure. Lead designer Genrik Novoselov at the Ilyushin Bureau took on this challenge. The result was a high-wing aircraft with 4 very powerful turbofan engines and a rugged landing gear specifically engineered for short, unprepared runways. And my goodness was she over-engineered. The nose gear alone sports 4 wheels, side by side, and each main gear has 8 wheels, allowing the IL-76 to land on rough fields that would stop most other jets. In fact, its landing gear is so robust that tire pressures can be adjusted in flight to adapt to different surfaces and flight runways that they're going to. She first flew in March 1971, and its performance really impressed Soviet leadership. By June 1974, the first planes entered Soviet Air Force service, immediately boosting strategic airlift capability. Production was centered at the Tashkent aviation plant in the then Soviet Uzbekistan, and in the following decades, nearly 860 of the IL-76s of basic military transport versions were built. This huge output speaks to the demand. The USSR needed a workhorse to move troops and equipment across its vast territory in Allied states. From the outset, the IL-76 was a multi-purpose beast, not just a freighter for crates and vehicles, but also outfitted to drop paratroopers, perform medical evacuations, and even be modified as an airborne command post. NATO assigned it the reporting name Candid, but to the Soviets it was simply a reliable hauler ready to go wherever it needed. With its twin-deck cargo hold, rear loading ramp, and built-in hoists, the IL-76 could load bulky items that most other aircraft couldn't. The IL-76 quickly became the mainstay of Soviet strategic airlift during the Cold War. As tensions mounted globally, the Soviet air forces relied on these transports to rapidly reposition their troops and heavy equipment. It could ferry infantry fighting vehicles, artillery, and up to 120 or 140 paratroopers in a single sortie, enabling Moscow to reinforce remote garrisons or Allied regimes at a moment's notice. In fact, airborne operations were a key part of Soviet doctrine. The IL-76s loaded with paratroopers and airfield seizure units were intended to spearhead interventions by capturing airstrips for follow-on forces. During large exercises, entire airborne regiments would practice loading into IL-76s to simulate mass drops behind enemy lines, a scenario NATO war planners took very seriously during the 1980s. The aircraft's kind of baptism of fire, I would say, came in the Soviet-Afghan War from 1979 to 1989. In the mountainous battlefields of Afghanistan, which of course I've been to and I noticed that it is an awful place for aircraft to work in, the IL-76s formed the logistic backbone and lifeline for the Red Army. They delivered troops, ammunition and even fuel into rugged, high-altitude airfields like Bagram and Kandahar. Between 1979 and 1991, Soviet IL-76s flew an astounding 14,700 missions into Afghanistan, transporting over 786,000 soldiers and 315,000 tons of cargo. Incredibly, they carried nearly 90% of all Soviet troops airlifted during the war. This was possible because the Candid could cruise above the reach of most anti-air weapons and execute very steep combat descents into airfields. That's what they were designed for. They were over-engineered structures in their airframe to get them to land in the most disgusting forms of approach. Afghan guerrillas found it difficult to hit high-flying IL-76s, resorting instead to firing at them during takeoff or landing. Unfortunately, dozens of IL-76s did suffer hits from Stinger and Strela shoulder-fired missiles and heavy machine guns, but their airframes were tough enough to absorb most of the serious damage and keep on flying. The aircraft earned a reputation for survivability, a fact not lost on the crews who nicknamed it the Flying Tank. Indeed, the IL-76's attrition rate in Afghanistan remained remarkably low despite sustained enemy fire. Soviet pilots adopted tactics like corkscrew landing approaches and max power takeoffs to minimize exposure to missiles. Helicopter gunships escorted each arrival ready to suppress insurgents with manpads lurking in nearby airbases. These adaptations underscored how crucial the IL-76 was to the war effort, and it's still to this day. One of the reasons the IL-76 has thrived for so long is also its adaptability. Over the years, it's spawned a family of variants customized for different missions. The baseline military transport came in the early models like the IL-76M, followed by the IL-76MD, D for Dalny or long range, with extra fuel for extended reach. Specialized versions for paratroopers such as the IL-76D even featured a tailgun turret for self-defense, a twin 23mm cannon guarding the rear ramp during airport operations. Later on, the tailguns were deemed obsolete and removed in modern upgrades since the advanced flares and electronic countermeasures took over the defensive duties. The airframe proved so robust that it became the basis of many other military aircraft. One notable offshoot is the IL-78 Midas. This is an aerial refueling tanker which added fuel tanks and a hose and drogue pods to turn the IL-76 into a massive flying gas station, literally. Since the 1980s, 50 IL-78s have been built, extended, and given a longer range for bombers and mid-air flight refueling. Another major derivative is the Bereev A-50 Mainstay, a radar-packed airborne early warning and control platform that mounts a rotating radar dome atop the IL-76's fuselage. Around 25 A-50s and updated A-50Us were produced, giving the Soviet and later Russian air forces a massive eye-in-the-sky equivalent to the NATO AWACS. There's even a newer A-100 model in development using the latest IL-76 airframe. The versatility doesn't stop there. Variants like the IL-82 Skip served as an airborne command post or aerial command center for high command, and 2 IL-76 airframes were converted into the A-60 airborne laser testbed in the 1980s. They also experimented with stretching the aircraft out. The IL-76 MF is a stretched fuselage version, 6.6 meters longer, with a higher payload of up to 60 tons and modern PS-90 engines. Only a couple were built though in the 1990s due to, of course, budget woes. Interestingly though, they were exported to the Middle East, initially Jordan and later passed to Egypt. Still, it showed the design could be enlarged for more capacity. By the 2000s though, demand for the IL-76 remained very strong, prompting a major modernization effort. This culminated in the IL-76 MD-90 Alpha, also known as development as the IL-476. A thorough upgraded model featuring a new glass cockpit, digital avionics, and a strengthened wing made of modern composites, and even new engines, the Avangardel PS90 Alpha 76. They were more quiet and more fuel efficient, although I'm not sure why you're worrying about quiet when you're trying to basically lift 60 metric tons of hardware. The IL-76 MD-90 Alpha essentially brings the Soviet-era transport up to a contemporary standard, allowing for higher takeoff weight and longer range, while meeting modern noise emission regulations. Although again, I don't think regulations really count when it comes to Russian airports. For export customers, it's designated as the IL-76 MD-90AE and signifies the platform's future. It is expanding significantly. People still want these aircraft. Additionally, specific customers-driven variants have appeared. For example, India's IL-78 Mk1 is a tanker customized just for the Indian Air Force, and China even has the KJ-2000 AEW&C, which is an imported version of the IL-76 airframe with Chinese radar systems. Through all of these versions, the IL-76's core design, with its high wing, T-tail, and gigantic hold, has proven remarkably flexible. It's a bit of a testament to Ilyushin's engineering, that a plane conceived in the 1960s could evolve into tankers, command posts, surveillance aircraft, and the 21st century basically still going, with an Air Force transport that works for many other countries and without losing relevance. Beyond the theory and specifications, the IL-76 has seen action in numerous real-world crises, often literally delivering the goods or troops in critical moments right to the front. I've already highlighted its massive role in Afghanistan in the Cold War, where it was the lifeline of Soviet forces, but those harsh lessons proved the IL-76's mettle under fire and informed use for later operations. For instance, during the First Gulf War and other conflicts, coalition forces observed Soviet and Russian IL-76s being used to ferry military supplies to current client states, underscoring its value to any nation that had one in their arsenal. In the 21st century, the IL-76 continues to answer the call. A notable example was China's use of the IL-76 for long-range, non-combat missions. Meanwhile, the IL-76 has been a steady workhorse for Russia and its allies in various regional conflicts. During the Syrian civil war, Syrian Arab Air Force IL-76s, often flying under civilian guise, were reportedly used to haul weapons, cash, and critical supplies from Russia and Iran to bolster the Assad government. Dozens of covert flights were run in the early 2010s, even including trips to Moscow to pick up freshly printed Syrian banknotes, illustrating its role in sustaining its allies under some sanctions. She's also performed humanitarian and peacekeeping roles. Russian and Ukrainian IL-76s, often flown by commercial crews on contract, were the unsung heroes of the relief efforts after disasters, giving their capacity to carry huge loads into aid-stricken areas. In one high-profile example, a Russian EMACOM civil defense IL-76 water bomber spent 39 days in Chile in 2017, helping to fight massive wildfires. A reminder that military planes can be a force of good in peacetime too. However, combat operations remain a risky business for large transports like the IL-76. Her resilience is respected, but it's not invulnerable. A tragic case of the shootdown of the Ukrainian Air Force's IL-76 in June 2014. During the war in eastern Ukraine, a Ukrainian IL-76 carrying troops on approach to Luhansk airport was hit by anti-aircraft fire from separatist forces. It crashed, killing all 49 on board. This incident was seared into the memory of Ukrainians' military. Fast forward to the all-out Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, and the sky saw similar danger for the Il-76. In the war's opening hours, Russia attempted a bold airborne assault on the Hostomel airport in Kiev. The Il-76 is poised to drop paratroopers, but Ukrainian air defenses responded fiercely. On February 25, 2022, they claimed to have shot down not one but two Russian Il-76s near Kiev. Russia remains the largest user of this aircraft by far. The Russian Aerospace Forces currently fielded approximately 120 Il-76s in active service, alongside around 20 Il-78 tankers and 15 A-50 AWACS versions. They also have a backlog of the new Il-76 MD-90 Alpha models on order to replace aging airframes. These transports are crucial for today's Russia's vast geography and resupplying Arctic bases to airlifting troops to far-flung regions like Syria, and of course, specifically for the Ukrainian campaign. China is also heavily utilizing these aircraft. At the moment, it looks like they have around about 50 of these aircraft, but some of them are noted to not actually be flying and left in storage. The Indian Air Force has been a long-time user and operator of the aircraft and has roughly 17 Il-76 MD transports. However, once again, not all of them are flying. India bought 6 Il-78 Mark K-1 aerial refuelers to extend the reach of its fighter jets. Perhaps most impressively, India partnered with Israel and Russia to procure the Falcon AWACS, known as the A-50EI, which mounts Israeli radar on 3 of India's Il-76s, with additional units on order. This gives India a fairly potent eye in the sky for regional surveillance. But how does 1970s era aircraft keep up with the demands of the 2020s? The Il-76's longevity is owed to a large part of continuous technological improvements and periodic upgrades. One of those upgrades has been the engines. The original Il-76 models were powered by Soloviev D30 KP turbofan engines, known for their distinctive black smoke trail and loud noise. While reliable, by 2000s these engines struggled to meet the modern fuel economy and noise standards. Enter the PS90 Alpha 76 engines, a high bypass turbofan that are cleaner, quieter and more powerful. Starting around 2004, commercial operators retrofitted some IL-76s, creating the IL-76 TD90VD variant, quite the tongue twister there, with PS90 engines specifically to comply with strict European noise regulations. On the military side, the new production IL-76 MD-90 Alpha comes with the standard PS-90 Alpha engines, which significantly extend the range and payload to reduce fuel burn. These engines allow it to finally fly in European airspace without special noise waivers, a practical benefit for international operations. Another area of advancement is the avionics in cockpit. The classic cockpit was a snapshot of the 1970s tech. Analog flight deck with round dials, navigator station in the nose, and even a flight engineer and radio operator as part of the crew. Modern iterations have streamlined the crew and introduced digital glass cockpit displays. The 90 Alpha, for instance, features a all-new cockpit with multifunctional LCD screens and advanced navigator communication gear. This not only eases pilot workload but also improves safety and compatibility with modern air traffic management. The updated avionics includes satellite-based navigation, GLONASS GPS, digital autopilots, and tactical communication systems that allow the aircraft to integrate into the network-centric operations of today. Structurally, she also got a boost. In the 90 Alpha, there was an introduced design of the wing made of lightweight carbon fiber composites in one-piece structures. This stronger wing supports a higher maximum takeoff weight and improves aerodynamics. The landing gear and cargo floor have been reinforced on new models to handle heavier payloads, and weight-saving materials are used throughout the airframe to offset the added tech. These changes collectively allow the aircraft to lift even more cargo than its Cold War predecessors while actually reducing maintenance needs thanks to newer manufacturing techniques. Defensive systems, of course, have changed too. They have removed the tail guns and began fitting all aircraft with advanced flare and chaff dispensers from the 2010s onwards. Some reportedly getting DIR-CM or directional infrared countermeasure systems, essentially turreted infrared lasers that can be using to blind heat-seeking missiles. These modern self-protection measures are far more effective than the old tailguns that they used to have. So what's the future of this aircraft? Well, looking at pure military use, as of 2025, the IL-76 in its various guises still forms the backbone of heavy airlift for Russia, China, India, and several other forces, and there is currently no direct replacement for the IL-76 in Russia's arsenal. A proposed next-gen heavy transport, sometimes dubbed the IL-106 or PAC-VTA project, exists really only on paper and likely won't materialize until the 2030s, if ever. That means the strategy is to keep enhancing the IL-76. The 90 Alpha is especially the bridge to the future, incorporating all the advanced features to buy time and capability to the next different variant. Its derivative, the Beriev A-100 AEW aircraft, is likewise intended to replace the older A-50s and keep Russia's AWACS fleet modern. This aircraft truly is a legacy. Spanning over 5 decades of service, the IL-76 has cemented its legacy as one of the world's great military transport aircraft. The very numbers speak for itself. It's nearly 1,000 of these aircraft being built in over 40 countries, logging countless hours ferrying people, payloads across the world. In the halls of aviation glory, few heavy jet transports have been produced in such volume or used so widely. The IL-76 stands in rare company alongside legends like the American C-130 as a turboprop and the C-17 Globemaster III, as a symbol of global aviation and airlift capability. But beyond the numbers, it's stories that truly highlight the legacy. This is an aircraft that has air-dropped humanitarian aid to disaster zones, dropped paratroopers into battle, and carried refugees to safety and tanks to battlefields. There's so much history behind her. She was born as a tool of the Cold War, as a superpower rivalry, yet ended up serving both sides of the geopolitical divide. A Soviet design, flying missions for NATO armies via commercial contracts, ironically bridging east-west through pure utility. And we all recognize this aircraft, the basic silhouette of the IL-76, the high wing, 4 engines, T-tail, drooping nose, and that beautiful cockpit windows is instantaneously recognizable, a design that went virtually unchanged externally even as its innards evolved. Aviation enthusiasts around the world over know that Candid, when they see one, whether it's painted in Russian military grey, UN white, or bright colours of civilian cargo liners, it is really done so proud of itself. Airshow appearances of the IL-76s, often roaring off short runways in clouds and smoke, never fail to impress crowds at the aircraft's sheer power and presence. We have to say that many chapters of this aircraft have yet to even be written. Its legacy of being a true workhorse is not really glamorous, but it gets the job done. There are some really pretty good-looking jets out there today, but it can survive the toughest conditions and time itself. It gave the Soviet Union and later Russia the global airlift muscle that matched their geopolitical ambitions of the time. And it served a lifeline in wars and emergencies, saving lives by the thousands through the cargo it delivered. and remains a key asset, of course, for today, navigating the uncertainties of today's world. So thank you so much for joining me on this in-depth journey through the story of the beautiful IL-76. I really hope you enjoyed learning about this mighty military airlifter from its Cold War inception to the modern upgrades and exploits of today. If you found this video informative and engaging, please folks give it a thumbs up and share it with those who also love military aviation history. Make sure you subscribe to my channel for more deep dive videos on military vehicles and aircraft. I have plenty more of exciting content coming on the way. And of course, as always, let me know in the comments what you think of the aircraft and this video. And if you have any personal experiences or favorite facts about it, I'd love to hear about them. And tell me a topic maybe you'd like to see on the next video or on my channel. As always, thanks for watching folks, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next video. All the best, bye bye.